Okay, welcome back. Dry fire training once again. Today we're going to talk a lot about the grip and drawing from a holster. So start just going back to our safety items that we talked about in the last video. We want to make sure that our firearms are clear, 100% clear. And also I'm using dry fire training mags. So these are weighted mags. You can buy them. I bought mine from Double Alpha Academy. These are specific to my pistol, and they're weighted. They won't lock the slide back, so you can cycle the slide as many times as you want. And I have a couple of these, and this is what I typically use for dry fire. It's weighted just like it's a full magazine, so that way you get the full weight of your handgun while you're training your dry fire. Also, we make sure that there's no ammunition around. We don't have any ammunition. We got our dry fire target set up. I have a whole slew of miniature size dry fire targets set up. This is my little gym area that I have at my house. And I like to work out in the morning, do a little dry fire practice. That's why I can get more dry fire time in. In between my sets of weightlifting, I can go and pick up my pistol, or sometimes I even lift and work out with my dry fire gear on. So in between sets, I can just do that. I got my heart rate up just like I'm shooting a match, or doing tactical games or whatever kind of game I play. Or just simulating if something happened to you out in the world, that if your heart rate's up, how you're actually gonna shoot. So today, like I said, let's start by talking about the grip. Let's talk about what a proper grip of a pistol is. So in this case, I'm using my USPSA rig today. Proper grip of the pistol. First thing you wanna do is make sure you have a very high grip on the pistol, as high as you can go. A lot of the striker fired pistols, if you get too much meat in your hand up there, you will cut your hand open, just like I did with a Glock the day we were all out there shooting. So that's a sign of I had my grip as high as it would possibly go. This one is kind of protected just the way that this pistol is set up. So with some of the striker fired stuff, you have to watch out for that. So it's also a sign you're doing it right. So make sure you get a really high grip on the pistol. You got your fingers wrapped around there, and whatever is left in here, you want to fill that space with your other hand and just put a ton of pressure in there. The tighter you can grip the pistol, the better recoil management you'll have when you're shooting the gun. When the gun recoils, it's going to push back on that, and the tighter that you can grip that pistol and the more pressure you can put on the grip, the less the gun is going to move around in your hand. If you have a really loose grip, that gun's going to move a lot. And you can only shoot as fast as you can see the target. So if that gun recoils like this, you have to find that dot again or find your sights again to figure out where the next shot's going to be. If it doesn't move hardly at all, and it's just doing this, my dot is just barely moving inside the window. Same will be if you're using iron sights. So you always want to make sure one of the most fundamental things you can do when you're shooting a handgun is proper grip of the pistol. Good tight grip with your strong hand, weak hand, filling in that space, thumbs pointed forward. You're almost driving your thumbs to the target. You also want to make sure your wrists are locked in a good grip. So if your wrists are weak, the gun's going to rotate on this axis. If you keep your hands and your wrists locked with a good tight grip, there's nowhere for that thing to go. There's nowhere for that gun to recoil. Some people will lock their wrists, their elbows out. I like to keep mine with a little bit of in there. When you lock your arms out straight, it pushes completely back on your shoulder and it's going to push you back. So to have that good stance, you're going to have a little bit of bend in your elbows. So there's a little bit of shock absorber in there if you need it. But the most fundamental thing is a very good tight grip. So one of the most basic drills that you can do in dry fire is just the presentation of the pistol to the target. So what you're going to do is you're just going to start at a compressed low ready. This is what we would call a compressed low ready. It's compressed in tight to your body. You have the beginnings of a really good grip. Your hands are in the right places. This hand is here. And all you're going to do is you're going to set your par timer. Start with a second. 1 second, and when that par timer goes off, you're just going to present the gun and find the sights. If you're using a dot, I see a lot of people, when they present their gun onto the target, you'll see this. they're doing this because they're trying to find the dot in the window. It's not as common with iron sights. They generally just find them and they just point, or you just don't see it as much. So this dry fire drill and exercise is going to take away a lot of that hunting for the dot. You'll develop the muscle memory so that when you present that pistol, you'll see the dot immediately. It'll become second nature. As soon as it comes out and you present the pistol, the dot's right in the center of the screen. Same with your iron sights. The more you do it, I know when I look in there right now, I see my dot. It's exactly where it is. I can do it without looking. It's right where it's supposed to be. The more you do that, the more that dot will go right exactly where you want it to be. To the point where once you get really good at it, your natural point of aim is going to be right there. You could close your eyes, point that out there. Oh, there it is, right in the center of the target. So that's one of the most basic things you can work on from a dry fire drill is presenting the pistol on the target. Good grip, good fundamentals, find the dot, find your sights so you can get on there immediately. So set your timer for a second and then just work it down. Once you nail a second, then bump it down to 0.9, then bump it down to 0.8. Really good, you should be somewhere around a half a second is coming out and it's on the target. So just presenting the handgun, the pistol on the target, find the sight immediately. Do that 20 times a day. Get used to doing that so that the next step when you move on is you're going to be going to the draw. So the steps of the draw is you're starting with your hands at your sides and you're going to go straight to your pistol and get the beginnings of that good grip. You can see that my finger is pointed straight down so that when it comes out, it's on the frame of the gun. Safety right there. The only time that thing should move off of the frame is when you get it parallel, and then you can start prepping the trigger as it comes out. And as I'm doing that, my other hand is coming up and I'm meeting the grip of the gun so I can build that grip as it's coming out. Once my gun's on target, I can move to the trigger and start prepping the trigger. So to put it all together, you're just gonna go here, 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 and here. Once you've got that down, take it slow, start slow. Don't even do it with a timer. Just start by building a good grip as it's coming out of the holster. For the drill that we practiced, that we qualified on, the IDPA 5x5 classifier, you're gonna draw 4 times. That's part of it. So if you can knock a half a second or a second off of your draw time in that, the course of fire that we're doing, you're gonna take 4 seconds off of your time maybe, and then that's a lot of time. And in a match, you're gonna draw 5, maybe 10 times. The other thing you can do as a drill is you can just start breaking down the draw. So the first part of the draw is moving from your hands here to being on the gun itself. So you can just set a really short timer, maybe it's a half a second, maybe it's even faster, and you're just gonna practice doing this. And this is all you're gonna do. Moving that hand up where it's gonna meet when the gun comes out, and going straight to the grip of the gun, and getting that first part of the grip. So once you've got that down, you wanna move to the second part of the draw. So you'll start with your hand on the pistol, and then your other hand up here, where you're gonna meet the pistol as it comes out, and when you set the timer, maybe a half a second, maybe a second, to just do this. And that's where you're gonna start. You'll start the timer, you set it on random start, and then just practice coming out and meeting the gun and getting on target and finding those sights. Then once you've done all of that, you can start putting it together. And just start moving through that and just practicing it over and over. You can see that when mine comes out, as soon as my gun breaks that horizontal and starts moving towards the target, I start prepping the trigger. This is something you can do in dry fire that you can then work on in live fire. Obviously, you don't want to make the gun go off accidentally, an accidental discharge or a negligent discharge. This is why we're practicing this in dry fire. So if your pistol is cocked, like in a striker fire, you can run the slide. In this, you can see that the hammer is back and it's on safe. When you come out, you can practice prepping that trigger. My trigger is the whole way prepped and the gun hasn't gone off. Here, it does. So if you want to practice it that way, Practice taking the safety off, good grip, prepping the trigger. When I do dry fire with a hammer fired pistol, I don't typically drop the hammer. I practice prepping it, getting it to the wall so that when I'm ready to shoot, it's there. A lot of times if I do multiple target arrays, I'll practice pulling the trigger to the wall, and then on the last one, then I'll drop the hammer. And that's kind of where I end that portion of the drill. So, and then you can change up the different ways that you want to practice doing the draw too. Some stages will have you with your hands up in the surrender position and you can practice coming to there. Some of them, if you're practicing for maybe a defensive situation, you might want to practice starting like this and then going to the draw. Or any different manner of doing that. Sometimes you'll have to start facing up range and you want to practice doing that. You want to turn towards the targets and then draw. You should pretty much always turn with your gun side to the targets if you're going to practice that. It's a more advanced dry fire technique. You might see it in a stage if you're doing competitive shooting, but definitely something different that you can try to work on. So this is the end of this week's episode of Dry Fire Training with Hammer Down Armament. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to us. Get out there and dry fire. The draw is a very important skill to master. Some dudes can get this down to like 0.5, 0.6 seconds to get a shot off. A long time the standard has been a 1 second draw. That's something that you can shoot for, no pun intended. But I would start with a higher amount and work your way down. Start with 2 seconds and then work your way down to 1.5 seconds. If you haven't found it, there's all the dry fire timer apps out there. I've been using the T-Rex Arms one when I don't want to get my regular timer out. And then I will, if I do use my regular timer, I'll just set a part time for 1.5 seconds or 1 second and just knock them out. JJ Racaza says before he even starts his regular dry fire routine, he does 100 draws and 100 reloads. But that guy's a professional. So make sure you're putting those reps in. It's going to help when you get out there on the range, and we'll talk to you soon.